Welcome, everyone. How's the audio? Good. Thumbs up. So good to see everyone for a very special Saturday. We're joined by Aya Santachitta, one of our sisters, mentors, and guides who I've known for over, well, a while, 7, 8 years since we first visited. So this is the second time we've gotten Aya to visit us in the last few months, and Aya, we're so grateful. Thank you for taking the time. We'll do a longer introduction in a second, but before then, just some announcements. Next week, Amistad and Skinner Auditorium will be occupied for another event. If you want to be part of a large elementary school pageant, you're welcome to come here. But if you want Clear Mountain, we will be over in Blodell Hall at the back of St. Mark's, so just come on over there. And if you're one of the Saturday prep, emails will be going out, but we'll need some help transporting things over to Blodell. Additionally, usually we would have a donation box for Clear Mountain, but today with Aya Santachitta visiting, those who wish to or inspired to contribute can do so in the back. There's a basket or a box with a sign that has the organization where you can donate or write checks to, Sarana Loka, and that will support Aya Santachitta and the foundation and Aloka Earth Room, which she's part of. And we also have stickers for Aloka Earth Room in the back. So they're just cards, but they're really cool cards. So you should check those out. Additionally, we mentioned last week that we would like it if people could avoid using this restroom during the gathering itself until about 11, just it's a bit noisy. There's restrooms in the back, however, which you're welcome to use. And people don't have to stay sitting for the whole meditation. Feel free to stand up and do standing meditation if you need to. And between the talk and the Q&A at about 10:30 also, you can kind of stand up and move a little bit. So we're just trying to keep things a bit more restrained, but people shouldn't take it too seriously, and feel free to use the restroom, etc., if you need to during the gathering in the back. Finally, we have put out a call these last few weeks for a hospitality steward. Devin, would you raise your hand? So Devin is one of our hospitality stewards. We also have Willery. Willery, are you here? Okay, not here right now. But the Buddha talked about 6 objects of reverence, the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, training, heedfulness, and the 6th is receiving guests. And I so love the fact that he added that final one, because it's kind of this encouragement I feel for us not to get too caught in a solitary vision of our practice, but to acknowledge that receiving guests and holding it as sacred, that quality, is really important. And one of the largest turning points or a significant part of my practice when I was at Wat Mapjan, where I ordained, was becoming the guest monk, and really seeing that, trying to make each person that visited the monastery feel deeply welcome, deeply comfortable, and really pouring care into each single person was one of the best things that I've done with my holy life at that time. So we need another hospitality steward. Willery's done an amazing job, but she needs to step back, and Devin could use a pair. What you would be doing is basically when people want to come visit us, you would be helping coordinate a place for them to stay. We have a bunch of people who've opened their houses for people to stay, and it's a real sign of welcome. And I would just say that if you're looking for a way to really bring a level of brightness to your practice right now, this can be a game changer. If you really make a determination, stepping into that role to maybe each person that comes and visits Seattle, not only do you help find a place for them to stay, but maybe you could make a determination to try to invite them over for a meal, each person, or to show them around the town, or at least have a call with them, just taking it on as something really precious and sacred. So we still need someone to take on that role. It's been a few weeks. If you are willing and interested, if you can talk to Devin or Bonnie. Devin, Bonnie, would you raise your hands? So please, I really encourage someone to step forward. That's a key role, and it's one of the things that makes Clear Mountain special is that aspect of hospitality. So just encouraging that. Ajahn.
So we'll chant together, but before that, give a quick intro to Aya for people who don't know her yet. So Aya Sanchita was born in Austria, and for her graduate degree, studied dance, theater, and ritual, and worked at an avant-garde dance theater troupe, where she did both costume design and performance. In 1988, she met Ajahn Buddhadasa in southern Thailand, where she was first inspired to monastic life. In 1993, from 1993 to 2009, she lived as a monastic in Europe and in Southeast Asia, in Thailand, studying mostly in the Ajahn Chah tradition, but also in the Shechin lineage of Tibetan Buddhism. And then in 2009, she started Aloka Vihara in California, along with Ayananda Bodhi. And in 2011, ordained as a bhikkhuni. And since then, she's been living an inspiring monastic life and is currently involved with the Aloka Earth Room, founding that and hosting events there in San Rafael. So very grateful to have you, Maya. I memorized all that this morning. Yeah. So we can chant together the Buddha's words on loving kindness on page 37. And people on Zoom can find the link in the chat. And we'll do the English. Now let us chant the Buddha's words on loving kindness. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. Why not holding to fixed views? The pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world.
Also very importantly, Tupperware. We have so much Tupperware. People keep giving us these on alms. It's wonderful. If you have given us alms with Tupperware, you'll find a mountain of it over in the back, and one of it may be, some of them may be yours, so please go and help us give you back your Tupperware. After that inspiring note, back to you, Aya, please.
So just gonna guide us in 10 minutes of landing here in this space. You know, from where you're coming today. Maybe you've driven, maybe, you know, it's a little bit of stress still in the system, you know, coming here, making it on time, and, you know, meeting a lot of people. And starting by, you know, becoming aware of the body sitting and breathing in and breathing out. Just gonna check, you know, is there anyone here who has never meditated before? Could you indicate? One person, okay. So maybe I'm just gonna quickly say that, you know, meditation isn't about having a different experience from the experience you are having, but it's about really connecting with that, you know, with a sense of interest and a sense of stepping a little bit back, you know, and having a sense of perspective. Just how are you feeling right now? Whatever it is, you know, excited, tired, confused, relaxed. And just being aware of that. So rather than losing ourselves in our experience, we are having the possibility to know what is happening. And sensing the weight of the body on the cushion, on the chair. The gravity of the earth, you know, which is gently keeping us in place. Becoming conscious of that. There's other, you know, places where there is not that same gravity and be a very different experience. And yeah, whenever your mind wanders into thinking about something, just gently bringing it back to the body and allowing the breath to take you into the body. Even, you know, with the out breath, letting go of any stress or tiredness, letting that go into the earth underneath where we are sitting right now. So letting it all drop down, coming into the body from the head. And with the in-breath, we can maybe connect with the stillness, the stability of the earth, and breathing that up into the body. Landing, arriving here. And maybe, you know, sensing the hardness where the body meets the chair, the cushion. The quality of stability, hardness, structure, of earth element, which we can also, sense in the teeth and the bones, the fingernails, the toenails of our own bodies. So that's just a way of arriving and attuning our system to this vaster system of the earth, which helps us to slow down. And I think I mentioned that last time, and I want to say it again, times are urgent, we need to slow down. That's a very well-known saying by a teacher called Bayo Akomolafe, Nigerian. And I think that's a very important consideration, because it's a paradox. And if we start to look at life, in this more deeper way, looking behind the surface of experience, there we find a lot of paradox there. So times are urgent, we need to slow down. With everything which is happening in this country and on the planet as a whole. A small version of what's going on here is going on in my own country, in Austria. And I think in many other countries. And the confusion, the uncertainty, the unsettledness which comes with all of this. Meditation isn't about escaping from that, but finding a grounding in the midst of it all. So we can get a sense of perspective and shift perception of what is really happening. So I'd like to, speak to that today. Perception being one of the what's called the 5 aggregates, and the Buddha speaks about perception being empty of a self. And we can shape it. We can take it into our quote-unquote hands, make it a practice to work with perception, because it can be trained. And it can be freed from the cultural conditioning of our current paradigm, which is obviously starting to show a lot of cracks these days. So the limiting conditioning of modernity needs to be also made an object of investigation. So the bigger picture within which we are swimming all the time, and we can make that conscious. To make that conscious in order to live up to our true name, human. The word human literally means earthling, or made of earth. Humus and human have the same root. So we are, made of earth. And our work lies here, as long as we are embodied, as long we are not fully awakened and need to have a body and are born here, we need to work within the limitations of here. And that, is very urgent to consider these days, because we are caught inside of a culture which is all about wanting to get over there. It's all about progress, it's all about speed. And kind of, we have forgotten where we come from and how we got here. And what the rules are of living on a planet like this. The limitations of having an earth body, which need to be understood and presented, in the systems we build and the way how we relate. So, being conditioned inside of a paradigm which is all about overcoming limitations and endings. And now we've kind of hit the wall, it's no longer really holding the promise it once had. And more and more of us start to get concerned, hey, this really doesn't seem to work. So the central logic of the paradigm of modernity, that there is endless growth, that this is possible, is showing up as a wrong assumption. And that throws us back directly onto the core tenets, of the Buddha's teaching, speaking about impermanence and unsatisfactoriness, of trying to find solutions in the material world in that extreme sense. As modernity is trying to do it. So I think that's at the core issue, at the difficult social and political and ecological situation we find ourselves. The disrespect of limits and the disrespect of mortality. And really, looking inside of ourselves, how much we are also, of course, influenced by this, but we have been conditioned into it, and we can take this teaching and peel layer by layer of this condition and peeling it back and composting it and freeing it up from this dream of endless growth. So, what if we start to look at endings and limits not as something to be overcome or as an obstacle to be overcome through technology, but look at it as that's the way it is, that's the rhythm of life. That's one of the three characteristics. Not just, in our own private, emotions and mind states, but also in terms of the cultural paradigm we are living inside of, sometimes quite unawares. So stepping outside that box and looking at it and seeing, oh, this box is cracking up right now. It's no longer holding what needs to be contained in a cultural paradigm. It needs to be able to relate to reality. And it obviously doesn't. So it's a powerful contemplation to directly, ask ourselves those questions. Not in a way, to blame or polarize, but just from a sense of concern and care for this world, this beautiful planet, and all who live here, not just humans. So to apply the teachings to these very big questions is a possibility to bring a sense of meaning and a sense of agency into our lives. We are not victims. We are participants, of this vast process, which, we can call it evolution. And, through really taking in the fact that our bodies and the greater body of the planet or the biosphere are one and the same process. And there's a relationship going on, even it's quite unconscious for our species still, because we were like trying to dominate and control it. That was a more immature stance, and now we are shaking out of that into the next evolutionary stage of our species, from adolescence into adulthood, going through this initiation, which is kind of a bit scary and dark, confusing, and that's the function of initiation, to enable the individual, but also, in our case, a whole species to compost something which is no longer up to the job, really, growing out of that into the next level of more maturity and accountability, relational accountability, and letting go of this, the individual bravado of the patriarchal hero figure, which is giving way to a different paradigm now. And we can accelerate the process by becoming conscious of it. And, bringing up that generosity in ourselves to allow the unsettledness, to allow the uncertainty to change us, to rewire us on a deep level. Even if it's scary and we don't know, how this emergence is going to pan out, really. But we can rest assured, that this system of planet Earth is doing this since over 4 billion years, and it has always kind of known how to preserve life. So really looking at this in a big picture, really opening up the lens. Directly, working with perception to gain a sense of perspective. Not taking it all so personal. That can help us, to hold all of the difficult emotions which get activated. And community, being with others together, we are all together in this. And we can support each other to stay open. Bring a sense of inspiration by seeing ourselves as part of a long lineage of humans, and also the lineage of Buddhism, which comes to us from Iron Age India. It's over 2,500 years old, and these bodies are, they started to emerge about 2.5 million years ago. So bringing together these ancient intelligences and becoming part of what needs to be understood and integrated. And not wasting time by going into polarization. And preserving this sense of agency to do what we can to protect and limit harm. So that's something, which is within reach, because we have this powerful teaching, which gives us a handle on these minds and these hearts of ours, to liberate them, increasingly from the limitations of what doesn't really work. So we can train perception. And I'd like to share with you a guided meditation now to give you like a taste of our membership in the earth body. A direct, experience of that these bodies and the body of the planet are one process. Looked at, in a certain manner. If we look at it just with our, opening our eyes, we can see the skin, and on a conventional level, that's where our body ends. But if we look deeper, we can see, no, this body actually doesn't have an end, and is constantly in relationship with the biosphere through eating, drinking, breathing, and so on. So noticing again that the gravitational pull of the earth, which keeps us on our seats, if we are conscious of it or not. And wherever we sit on this planet, we always sit right above the center of it. So feeling, the blood pulsing, maybe in your hands or your neck, fingertips. So that's, the water element in the body. Which is, cycling automatically throughout the body. And this water element in our bodies is actually part of the larger water and mineral cycles of the region where we live, through drinking the water and going to the bathroom. So it doesn't really end, at the skin. It goes into the ground. And it comes up from the ground again. So we are part of that whole region where we live, the watershed. Just allowing that thought, that perception, to drop in. And there's a sense of, there's a recognition, this is really true. I never thought about that. And just as the blood, nourishes your body, water is the blood of the earth. There's a lot of water here in this region. It's beautiful to see the aliveness, the vitality of the land here and of the forests. It's quite different than where I come from in California. And then, notice your breathing. Like the blood, it's also pulsing and mostly automatic. And, the oxygen, which we take in, and many other animals, is the gift of, mostly of plankton, phytoplankton in the oceans, and also some percentage of it comes through green plant life on land. So as the plankton and the plants breathe in CO2 and then releasing oxygen as part of the process, how they convert, light into sugars, which we then eat when we eat vegetables. So they are able, to convert sunlight into food, which is very impressive, I would think. So just allowing that also to sink in, these different ways of intelligence. How plants, show up here. And what an important part they play for life on this planet to thrive. Our whole bodies are made from those elements, which are coming to us through the plants we eat and, the plants we wear, build our houses from. It's amazing, how utterly we are dependent on them. for them, to basically synthesize sunlight together with the minerals and waters of this planet into all of the things we have and we eat. So that's a really a very different way of using perception than usual. So as the earth, as the water is the blood of the earth, the air is the breath of the earth. And we are participating in it. And then we can also, sense the aliveness in the body, the vibrancy, our own energy body. Which is rising as we are breathing in and contracting a little bit as we are breathing out. Noticing the muscle tone, the energy which is released in the body, with every heartbeat. And sent out throughout the body. Comes to this body from the sun through the food we eat. So just, allowing that amazing mystery to touch our hearts. Giving a sense of wonder, a sense of awe in the midst of a time of great confusion and uncertainty. And they are both existing at the same time. So rather than getting lost in what doesn't work, we can bring a sense of balance and spaciousness by seeing it in this larger context. So, these bodies of ours, everything, we wear, and even our cell phones in our pockets, and the building with its chairs and tables and all of the food here, everything has emerged out of this living planet Earth and will go back into it. And there is no technology whatsoever which can change that. It can be dragged out, to a certain extent, of course. And just allowing that to land in us, like snow falling on a warm ground. Allowing it to just sink in without no need to sink. Just allowing it to sink in. And allowing the body to be rewired by this different way of looking. The feeling the discomfort, the uncertainty, the confusion, that's all okay, it's all part of it. And also the sense of awe and mystery. Which we really need now, in order to keep us moving and keep us open to what wants to be understood, to really stand under it and allow ourselves to be changed by it. And knowing, that we are doing this together. So, by really noticing the vulnerability of these earth bodies, totally dependent. And the receptivity and, the willingness to relinquish what doesn't work, the old paradigm of control and domination, and becoming a true member of this earth community. Which isn't just all about us, humans, but it's about much vaster process. And as we are sensing our own confusion and not knowing, we can extrapolate how it will be for others, who don't even have the leisure to meditate, maybe. Don't have the privilege to spend time like this because they need to work. Or they don't have access even to this kind of teaching. So, using the privilege we have to be part of this new paradigm to emerge into our communities, that we are part of a living, intelligent earth, and we can trust that. Because we will soon we'll eat food, and we're eating the earth, really. It's a beautiful food reflection which I actually learned from Ayananda Bodhi. She learned it from Venerable Mahagosananda, a Cambodian monk. And he would say, I am earth and I'm eating earth. Understanding this, we understand all the teachings of the Buddha. I am earth and I'm eating earth. Understanding this, I understand all the teachings of the Buddha. Not with the head, not with the intellect, but with the whole being. And as we are letting that drop in, we can sense how the resistance of the system, maybe the confusion, the contraction, the process of change. And we can, we have the Brahma Viharas as these very powerful practices, to create space in the system. Metta, Karuna, Mudita and Upekkha. Whichever of those four you find helpful, with the in-breath really bringing up that Brahmavihara in the heart. And with the out-breath, allowing it to radiate out through your whole body and maybe even beyond the body. May all beings be free from harm and the intention to harm. That's the slogan on compassion, Karuna. May all beings be free from harm and the intention to harm. In a world, where there's so much confusion and polarization at this point. May all beings be free from harm and the intention to harm. And now we can sit for a few more minutes, and then I'm going to ring the bell.
Andamayam Dhammakatayu Sadhu Karam Dharamase. Sadhu, 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 anumodami. For those of you who are new, that means that was a great talk. Way to go. We have a chance now for questions and answers, and it's a very precious opportunity to be visited by a monastic such as Ayya Santacchitta, who I believe has been in robes for 25 to 30 years at this point in total. That's very rare in this world. More than 30, more than 30. So I just would encourage people to take advantage of that, and particularly her kind of speaking to the present moment and the shift that's at work. So feel free to raise your hand if you would like to say something. If you're on Zoom, raise your electronic hand and AV team will call on you. And if you're in person, just raise your normal hand and Miles will run a mic over to you. And questions can be directed towards all, but encouraging those to speak directly to Ayya Santacchitta more.
Thank you so much, Ayya, for your talk and guidance and being here. I have a question about, I know you're involved in, I don't know if activism is the word you'd use, but kind of more engaged Buddhism maybe in the world. And I'm wondering how you relate to your time spent with that and keeping up with sort of current worldly things going on with the world and climate, and how that relates to sort of seclusion and just the ideas of the equanimity of this is samsara and there's suffering and it will all change, world contracts and expands, and kind of that macro Buddhist cosmology, and how that can relate, I guess. Thanks.
I've just been on winter retreat, 1.5 months, so I just I have times on retreat, and then I have times on, I mostly teach in the way I've just been teaching, and so to keep the balance, and I think, to do both, to have time to study and to meditate, and get, be able to really settle down, and then go out and teach when I'm invited, and that's how I do it. Yeah, and also, I allow it also to emerge. The talents I have and the skills I have. Finding ways where I feel that resonates well. That's a good use of my time. And when I feel it's not, then I'm just not gonna do it, And as I'm getting older, I have more capacity, to say no in a way. And I live mostly on my own now, or with just one person, so I don't live in a big community anymore, so I can have more agency how I'm gonna use my time, and I've just lived over 30 years in community, and now in order to be able to do what I want to do, or what I feel called to do, I had to also maybe step out, to become more, to kind of show up in a different way, and once that is more consolidated, I think I'm most likely going to be again in community, more. But when there's those times of when there's a lot of change going on, sometimes, one needs to move out of the old environment, because it's kind of a dynamic, which keeps you kind of in your old ways. It would be much more difficult. So to know, what's supportive for one's practice, and it's a learning process, yeah. And just, to keep the question alive, and And then really, I think life supports our intentions, if we can really stay with that. This is at least my experience. It just takes often much longer than one thinks, as the monks will probably also know, but it's happening, yeah. Yeah.
Zoom question from Juan Philippe, please.
Hello, thank you, Ajahn. Thank you, Aya. I was drawn before the session to ask about what's it like to ordain coming from a non-Buddhist country when monasteries are very far away. And I think Aja's story might be very luminous to that question. And maybe some of the Ajahns as well have a story in that way. Thank you very much.
How it was with me, I had my first contact with Buddhism in Thailand in the late 80s when I was traveling there. So stumbled into the monastery of my first teacher and really felt a sense of possibility, the way he was showing up. I found that very attractive. So I continued to go back and do retreats, and then one day a nun arrived there. Actually, she lives now in Seattle. Her name is Venerable Dhammadina. She's now in Tibetan robes, and she was a nun from the Burmese tradition at that time. She showed up, and then this was the first time that I saw a white woman in brown robes. So, and then I had this, there was the sense, this is actually something one can do, because in Thailand there's only mostly Majjhimas at that time. There were no bhikkhunis. So I've had that sense of feeling a little bit of a draw, in that direction. And that took me then to Amaravati Buddhist Monastery in England, because I didn't want to be a Majjhi. And so then I went there, and there was an international community with Siladhara training, and then I became a Siladhara there and trained there for about 16 years. So one needs to travel, in order to find one's way. But it wasn't very difficult. And then, somehow at one point that training there had its limits, like everything does, So then I moved on together with Ayanana Bodhi, who now has a vihara in Port Townsend. And we came together on the invitation of the Sanaloka Foundation to America. And then we became bhikkhunis. And that's how it unfolded. So, and it's different for everyone. Yeah, and ordination isn't the answer to all problems. It just works for some people. So it's like some people are called to be hairdressers, and others are called to be teachers, and others are called to be monastics. So it's not that special, really, in that sense. But for those, for those who have that kind of karma or whatever, it can be a great thing to do. And it seems to work for the three of us, right? Yeah. But it's not like an automatic recipe, for anything, really.
Thank you, Juan Felipe. I think that was a very good answer. And just to add, I do think when people first come in contact with the Dhamma, the sense of desiring to align one's life with it can be a very powerful force, and often that can manifest, I think, as a vision of robes. And if that does kind of manifest in the heart, whether or not conditions in your life are ripe for that, just really honoring that piece of your heart that orients towards the Dhamma, however that kind of vision is manifesting, and The analogy I use is really letting that aspiration gather sunlight, like a gem in the hand, but not to take it as an indication that you have to, as I said, ordain. It's definitely not a recipe for everyone. But that one thing I think is worth encouraging for everyone, really, who's able, is to go visit monasteries. A lot of people have the aspiration to ordination come up in the heart, or perhaps have had a Dharmic path, which has mainly been retreat. And to know that there's something very precious about time spent at monasteries. There's a holistic path, an ancient language of symbol, ritual, embodiment, and that kind of sterile, narrow focus on just meditation, which can be so problematic for so many, has a chance to kind of widen and blossom in the monastery into the full Noble Eightfold Path in a way that's ancient and nourishing. So Abhayagiri opens up in a few weeks, April 1st. You can email him, tell him Ajahn Nisapo and Ajahn Kovilo sent you, as long as you behave yourselves. And you can stay for a week. There's Dhamma, there's Birkin, there's other places, but really just encouraging people to go visit monasteries, and whether or not you ordain, at least you'll have access to that piece of your heart and of practice. Sravasti Abbey is also great there near Spokane. Mary, please.
Thank you, Ajahn. Thank you, Aya, for the beautiful talk. It's wonderful to sit with you again. I wanted to clarify something that you mentioned at the very end, which was, may all beings be free from harm and the intention to harm. In my contemplation of the world today, it seems that harm is being done, but not necessarily with the intention to harm. People actually think that these things might be beneficial. And so it's more the approach that you were mentioning, the domination and the control, that seems to be the power play that is stopping things. So my question is really about how to approach this. It seems to me that your approach, how to speak to this, how to act towards this dynamic of domination. And from your talk, I gathered that the approach that I heard in there was consciousness raising. Just that early movement of bringing things up to be seen in a different way. Is that a way to speak to this domination? Thank you.
I mean, it's part of it, yeah.
Yeah.
That's part of it. And then, from this consciousness, which is having, maybe a different perception and perspective on what's really happening, then depending on our situation and our skills, different possibilities for action can be, identified, of course. Some, the agency has then to be translated into action, and that will be different for everyone. But there's different, definitely, and one need to do something, not just sit on the cushion. But if that's done really in a heartful way, the momentum to act, will become so strong, and then ways will open up, And there's just one organization which I'd like to actually, put out there. If anyone is interested, they have a website, and they are called Indivisible. An organization which is very clear about that if we allow ourselves to be divided into polarization, that will be not helpful, So I suggest people look at that. There's ways, to get involved in meaningful action. And there's many other ways, but this is something you have to find out for yourself. If you're really practicing and really nourishing this intention, it will find a way, But this is not something I can give to you, but you have to go through the pains of finding out for yourself. you know, because it's a trial and error thing. It might take some time to really find a place which is really congruent, you know, for you. But this is the dana here, you know, this is the generosity to go through the messiness of finding what's your contribution and doing it, you know, in Sangha and discussing it with others, because you're not the only person who doesn't know maybe what to do and, you know, feels the hopelessness and the helplessness. But then if you speak it out, that's already the next step, you know. And it's messy. It's dukkha, you know.
It is
Just
dukkha.
like everything else.
Thank you so much for that answer, for the kind answer, and for the allowing of the receptivity and the time to find the appropriate action. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming and for your talk, Aya. Appreciate it. A question for all of you is anger, from a Buddhist frame, is anger ever justified? Especially in relation to maybe political action, what's happening to the world.
I mean, it depends, you know, how you define anger, you know. If you speak, I speak about anger energy, you know, it's just like one way how emotions can manifest in the body. And then what we do with that energy, there's things which are skillful and others which are unskillful, you know, to channel it. So I think anger energy, you know, the fire energy, without that, I mean, it'd be impossible to do anything much, isn't it? So it's important to have that energy of knowing, you know, if something is causing harm and trying to change that, to limit it, you know, to stop it, to channel it in a more skillful way. I think that's a good thing, you know. But if you send that energy into polarizing and blaming and so on, then that would be not good. That would not be helpful, you know. But shutting down that fire, you know, would be a waste, you know, because then we don't have any energy to get up and do something, you know. So, for example, when I was, I mean, just a little example, you know, when I was in the monasteries in England, where I have learned and benefited so much, you know, from the Ajahn Chah lineage, but then at one point I hit the glass ceiling, you know, of patriarchy, which became unacceptable, you know, as I became older and more, you know, took on more responsibility and so on. And that definitely, you know, was like a powerful kind of thing to hit against, you know, for some time. And then I was like working with that energy. I wasn't like immediately going with the sledgehammer and knocking down the monastery, but I was finding a way, you know, how I could find a way out, you know, so I can use that energy in a more beneficial way. And that then, you know, the world responded suddenly, you know, by the Sanaloka Foundation inviting me and another body, and then giving us a place to stay in America. And then we got invited by Spirit Rock and IMS and by all of those centers. And then suddenly, you know, we had a lot of exposure to people, and then they really liked what we were doing, and ding, 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 you know, and that's how it worked. Without that initial fire energy, I would have just stayed there like and get depressed, you know, and go down, down, down. But I didn't act out. I mean, sometimes I said things, you know, which were offensive to people, I'm sure, but it was in bounds, you know, I'm still in ropes, you know. So, yeah. So we need the energy, and it doesn't need to be harmful, you know. And if we swallow it down, you know, it can make us sick, really. We harm ourselves. Yeah.
Thank you, Aya. Yeah, that speaking to the fire and the value of that, the inner wanting to bring about wholesomeness, bring about goodness, that's so important. And it's so interesting in the Pali language, things are so much more cut and dry. Like dosa the Pali word for anger, it's always unwholesome. It's a negative mind state which is going to hurt yourself and hurt other people. Whereas, yeah, in English you talk about, righteous indignation, and it's a mixed up term. And it comes with the fire which wants to do something to bring about change. And another aspect is, say, critical realism. Like the English word being critical, it comes up with, you're seeing there's an aspect of the English word anger which does have this critical, clear-seeing edge to it. But we want to cultivate that clarity and the energy, the heat energy, but without all of the afflictive and harmful spite, which is the emotion and the weight that comes behind so much of our emotional anger. So preserving the good parts of that criticalness and letting aside all of the unhelpful and hurtful aspects. Yeah, please.
And sometimes, making mistakes and then, just apologizing or repair. We can repair, because if we are so scared, to make a mistake, we also might not, not dare to do anything. That would also be not so good, So one can make a mistake and then, repair it, learn from that. That's also part of the path, Remorse and, kind of, even, in our monastic discipline, we have, we have rituals for, apologizing, isn't it, and asking for forgiveness and so on, because it's part of the path, We are not born like perfect. I mean, in one way we are perfect, but, the way how we show up, and that's okay too, I think. That's how we learn. Yeah. And and the word chanda, is aspiration, or, to have a desire for a wholesome, showing up in a wholesome way, is also a word is a different word. It's called chanda, and maybe Aya Chanda has visited here, your Sangha. Yes, she has that name. So that's also, there needs to be some kind of energetic movement of wanting to do something good, otherwise we won't do it. How would you ever have come here today without wanting to come here, We would be an empty hall already.
May I say one final thing, and then I think we have to just also, I think that is something a lot of us practitioners brush up against is, the acknowledgement that within the experience of initial anger or outrage, there's really necessary and wholesome elements of like knowing something should be addressed, knowing that action should be taken. And I think the Buddhist perspective is and maybe some of those could be pointed to as the anger energy, or just sort of, kind of the need for something to do something. But I think where Buddhism really draws a line is that when that manifests as anger, and there's that sense of needing to, from a place of reactivity, jump into something, that's where there's never a place for expression of anger as such, of dosa. And I'm reminded, like, we had a furnace at a Abhayagiri, and you'd put in wood, and the smoke would circle back down and incinerate again and again, and it would heat really, it would get to extreme heat, and it would burn off all the extra smoke, so what came out of the furnace would be clean. And I think that's a good analogy for how we work with angers. Like, you can watch the experience arise, but as a practitioner, knowing, like, never acting from that place of burning reactivity, heat, holding it internally to the point where we, in a few hours or minutes or days, usually there'll be a place where the smoke and the grit and, like, the leaping flame has settled enough that you're able to discern the wholesome elements and act from that place that's quieter, calm, and has a gentle warmth to it. So yeah, I think, a lot of it's semantics and working with, like, what does anger mean versus anger energy, or wholesome desire to make change. But I think that's something we do have to navigate. Ayasanta Chitta is one of the best for that, by the way. She was one of the first to give me clear guidelines for how we could skillfully interact with the Bhikkhuni sisters in our lives. It meant a lot. Thank you, Ayam. I'm sorry, David, we do actually have to wrap up. We will have a chance for people to come up and say hello to Ayasanta Chitta after this. And also, if people didn't get a chance to ask questions, we have our Wednesday evenings, which people can come and ask whatever they would like as well. But
That device is called a wood boiler. A wood boiler. Very interesting. So we have something on our website called the Blessing Braid, where anybody can go on and just add someone to a list of just people who we can consider and kind of open up our intention and well wishes for. So maybe Milo, if you could read that list.
For Ajahn Nayaniko, sciatica pain spread metta. It doesn't say who that was requested by. For Catherine, cancer worsening, spread metta from Aurelian Godmother. For Tammy, recent cancer diagnosis, spread metta. For Kathy in hospice, from Alf Tan, her son. For Sahayako, or Rocky, recovering from recent surgery, spread care. That's from Sukha Vaho and the Ajahns. And for Sachi Gudas, age 6 years, bedridden, from his father, Sachin.
Thank you, Milo. And if anyone here wanted to bring any other names into the space, for Dave. Dave. Okay. He's having surgery. Yeah, Gail. Joseph and Catherine, thank you. Yeah, please. Mary, recently diagnosed with dementia, thank you. Oh, yeah. Oops. John, okay. Waiting for a liver transplant, thank you. Okay, sorry. Devin? Emily, who just passed. Okay. And, yeah, please, Bree. Ty. Thank you. Yeah, please. Margaret and Andrea. Thank you. Yeah. For James. Thank you. William. William Foster. Okay, we can hold all those names and any other names that weren't mentioned just in our hearts in silence for just a bit, and then we'll chant. And continuing that practice, on page 33, we have the verses of sharing and aspiration. And even if you don't know how it happens or how you do it, just this sharing merit. So any goodness that we've done this morning, last week, just sharing that with the people who we brought into the space, sharing all that goodness with them. Now let us chant the verses of sharing and aspiration. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest devas and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life, May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana in every kind of birth. May I have an upright mind, with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble guide. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled.
Would you, before we wrap up, and people, if they need to go, they can. It is 11. But would you have 60 seconds of encouragement to give our community or any advice for us going forward?
I think that's what I did the whole time today.
That is the best answer. I was listening. Well played, Aya. Okay. So we are going to go around. For those who are feeling brave, if you've been here 3 times or less and wouldn't mind raising your hand and just introducing yourself to us with your name and how you heard about us. Only a little bit of pressure. If you're shy, it's okay. Thank you, Michelle. Welcome. We like Alf. Welcome, Emma. Welcome, Tyler. The internet's great. Big fans. Welcome, Paul. If someone else is raising your hand, I can't see it, but someone's motioning. Oh, and please, whoever you are back there, stand and speak. Welcome, Erica. Please, person on Zoom. Nicole? Oh, never mind. Okay.
Oh,
Well,
can
if
you
that
hear
was
me?
you. Oh, yes, we can.
Oh, I'm
Please.
so
Yes.
sorry. It wasn't working for a second. My name is Nicole Jacobs, and I heard of the Crystal Mountain group through Jill Boone, my previous Sangha instructor leader in the West Seattle Sangha. So thank you for having me.
Welcome. Welcome. I think we had one more in the back near Erica. Well, great. Welcome. So it's a lovely community that's forming. and just really encouraging people to tap in whatever way they're able, stick around. We have a social hour where feel free to partake of the wonderful food, which a lot of people brought. We have coffee. I think we have tea, just for you few tea drinkers out there. Everything, us monastics, we don't touch money. Everything here is offered freely, including all the books in the back. Please feel free to take some. And just a reminder, if you're interested in being a hospitality steward, talk to Devin or Bonnie. And also just to really value visits from our Bhikkhuni sisters, such as Aya Santachit. It is rare to have Theravada female monastics in the world, and to have them so near, have such friendships with them, and such regular visits is a real gift. So encouraging people to go find out about Aloka Earth Room in the back, and to speak with Aya Santachita while she's here, and to kind of follow what she's going to be up to these coming years. And importantly, Aya, what was your birthday was last Friday, is that correct? Okay, so in classic Clear Mountain fashion, we have a shiny balloon and a cupcake that Kim bought. And a present. And if we usually don't sing as Buddhists, but if everyone could sing happy birthday to you. Three big Clear Mountain sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. A chart with anatomical diagrams. And the cupcake has 3 little birds on it, which is cuter than the disembodied body card. I thank you for visiting us. Please come back again soon. Okay, that would be great. So next time she's teaching at Cloud Mountain, she'll try to stop by. We would like that, Aya. So I think if people want to bow, we can. If you're on Zoom, you can stick around for Zoom coffee hour afterwards. And if everyone could wave goodbye to our friends on Zoom, my Zoom friends. And these balloons last for a long time, Aya. I think Ajahn Kovila had a unicorn outside of his akuti for a good month, so still has it, still has it. Okay. People can feel free to come up and say hello to Aya and the others, and just get to know one another.
Hello, everybody. Hi.
Hello.
Did I just allow you to unmute yourselves? Can you unmute yourselves? It's my fondest hope that I did that. Okay.